it's a goal. Who got the assist? Who got the assist?
Greetings, sisters. Back on the Sunday after a massive weekend for me, finishing in the top 300 in the world on Elite Serie and Norwegian fantasy football, which is really good because I captained Trippic. Oh, hang on a minute, wrong pod. But yeah, still, we're back for a rapid turnaround pod as FPL hits the fast forward button as it does every year around now, meaning we can both congratulate free hitters and forget failed triple captains, as we have 48 hours or under 48 hours now to go until the next deadline, as FPL managers given the mission of navigating what could be a very tricky midweek set of games. Joined as always by Sam. You all right, mate? All good?
Yeah, all good. Had a lovely Sunday roast today. Didn't really catch much of the football live. Caught the Arsenal-Chelsea game on the train home. So been frantically trying to get up to speed with absolutely everything that went on in the 2:00 kickoffs. But it's all worked out pretty well, I think. So yeah, I'm in good spirits as always. Starting to feel Christmassy with December tomorrow. And of course, we've got a very quick turnaround to make sure that we're ready and prepared for Game Week 14. So plenty to discuss as always. As always, we are Who Got the Assist. On today's agenda, we'll have a quick look back at Game Week 13. Obviously, it's just wrapped up, so we'll have a look at our teams and how we got on. A quick word on the effects of the social media bubble as well and what it can do to us as FPL managers. I think that came out in full force this game week and, of course, also towards the end of the game week when people started posting their scores. So we're going to talk about that for a little bit. And then we're going to move on to replacements more than anything else for a couple of the very well-owned assets. Obviously, we're looking at injuries and suspensions in the shape of Senesi and Sarr, Caicedo in there as well. So we've got a few different suggestions that we need to run through for replacements for those players and whether or not certain players might need selling in the first place. Of course, as always, we've got the captaincy chat, which will be a really interesting discussion this week, I think. And 1 week punt will make a return and then wrapping up with our teams towards the end. I'm not sure we'll go on quite as long as usual because it's a tight turnaround, but we always say that and it ends up going on just as long as always. It is Sunday, the 30th of November. As Tom mentioned, the next deadline is on Tuesday. So we've got to get our skates on, don't we, Tom?
Yes, indeed. Right, okay, let's get through the game week update for this week. I say get through, but actually, you know what? When we're going to talk about this in a minute, it's a really strange week. Like, I'm personally really pleased by how this week has gone. It's the 8th green arrow in a row for me. A 36% rise from 912k to 583k. With the 54 I scored, I was 13 points above safety. I know it was a similar story for you. I did Saka in for Enzo for hygiene. I've been talking about it for ages. We spoke about it at the end of the last pod, and I was kind of really set on Foden, and then I changed my mind. And maybe I could do a bit more on Foden, but that's outcome bias. I had my heart sort of set on Saka when I kind of realised, yeah, I can do it, and I feel okay about that. As discussed the other week, the front eight of Saka, Bruno, Minte, Semenyo is wavering a little bit for me, but still at the moment, Thiago, Haaland, and Mateta should be rock solid for consistency for a little while. But yeah, the elephant in the room. Let's talk to it. Triple captain failed, but I think, Sam, it's the least I've ever cared about a chip not working in my FPL career. And I posted at the time yesterday on Blue Sky that I honestly, genuinely couldn't give two shits about the TC blanking, and neither should anyone else who went there, to be honest. I mean, the reason for that is precisely no one predicted a tight 3-2 with no goal involvement and only one shot for the hitherto goal-scoring machine robot that is Erling Haaland. I mean, it happens. This sort of thing happens, but when it does happen, you can't sit there and be really upset. Like, at the end of the day, you can be upset with Haaland for not scoring, but you can't be upset at your own decision for doing that,
For sure.
I think if I'd had my free hit and my triple captain, I was kind of umming and ahhing between the two, and I did triple captain rather than free hit, then I'd have more scope to be annoyed. But as it was, I stand by that. I genuinely am not annoyed at all by it. And I know that sounds like Ross Geller, I'm fine, but I genuinely am not. And I kind of feel like having two sets of chips also helps a little bit with that. And it makes you feel like you can kind of permit that first set to kind of fall flat on their face a bit, and you can kind of be all right with it. Like my bench boost was rubbish. My triple captain was obviously rubbish. The free hit's a little bit better. The wild cards definitely stood me in good stead for this sort of recent rise. The real stars this week were Thiago, highly owned by free hitters, but still only 44% effective ownership for me. And there, Bruno, 2 assists and 3 bonus this afternoon, well, at lunchtime, which was great. Likes of Bumo and Gahey, the usual suspects, blanking also helped. And, the fact was, and again, we'll talk about this in a minute, in actuality, not many people were on free hit in the wider FPL playing world. So my biggest sort of main killer on live FPL, if you use that, was Gakpo, for example, this week. 14 points. Other times that would have been absolutely disastrous, but the effective loss was 1.79, so nothing really. So yeah, overall good week, kept pace with a lot of free hitters. I mean, I wasn't very far off, and if Haaland had done anything, I might well have outscored a few of them. So yeah, I'm quite surprised to be saying this, really, in terms of kind of how I feel about the week just gone, but objectively it's been really, really good, and I think maybe a similar story for you.
Yeah, largely. I'm all out of chips before this game week anyway, so I knew that I had a bit of exposure to risk. I obviously a lot of triple captains, a lot of free hits. I was starting to get a bit worried by the time we got to Friday, but I felt confident enough in my team that I could probably hold rank, and obviously things could go against me. It could obviously be quite painful, but I was still pretty confident in my team. Ended up with 49 points and a 90k green arrow up to 267k. So yeah, I think 4th green arrow in a row. The wild card since game week 8 has taken me from like 1.4 million to about 250-ish K. Very, very happy. Obviously the free hit has done brilliantly well for a lot of managers, but we will come on to the fact that actually, all in all, not too many people actually free hitted and got that combination of success. So if you're out there and you've done so, amazing. But I'm happy with 49 points. It's again a pretty sizable green arrow. If I had been told that I'd be at 267k after 13 game weeks at the start of the season, I would have absolutely shaken your hand and taken that. Looking around my side, Pope is an issue. Obviously didn't play according to how it's an injury, but I feel like maybe he was just taken out of the limelight a little bit and not put on the bench. So basically the cameras weren't spanning over to him all the time, and all of that sort of stuff. So Dubravka came off my bench. He had a clean sheet until about 70 odd minutes, so I was getting a bit hopeful.
Yeah, a penalty, wasn't it?
But then, yeah, when Thiago goes and gets a brace to cancel out that clean sheet, that obviously did the business for me. So Thiago was one of my transfers in for João Pedro. So that was 13 points in change of 1. So big profit there. And then my other free transfer was Enzo out for Anderson. So that was another 4 points there. So very happy with that. Saka got an assist. Bruno, again, 11 points from him. Fantastic. And it's more about what the problems are coming into next week that I'm concerned by. Obviously, Senesi picking up that 5th yellow. Pope looks likely to miss out again, I would think. And Sarr looks very likely to be out. And I've only got 1 free transfer to deal with it all. So we'll come on to all of that. But this week in isolation, 49 points, more than happy. Like to go up against the triple captainers and free hitters and survive and get a green, and a sizable green at that, I'm very, very happy with that.
Yeah, I think that this kind of links in. It's not going to be a kind of a big old talking point this week, but I think if you'd have said at the start of the week to me, and that free hitters would probably average out around 70, 75, and we'd get around 50, and we both kind of, I'd be like, oh no, this is going to be an absolute disaster. We're going to get a massive red arrow. And congrats to free hitters. I mean, most scored really highly, and as I said, like must be around 85% plus got green arrow, if not 90%, if not unless you went really, really, really flipping out there. And the fixtures and players did what we mostly thought they would. Albeit lead scoring 2. And as mentioned, Burnley scoring the pen, probably not in the script, nor I'm assuming with the likes of Mateta scoring a goal. But Arsenal and Palace not keeping clean sheets was probably huge for you all as well. So well done. It was a really good time to play it. It was the time to play it, really, in terms of the fixtures, kind of fixturing and the mathing. But I mean, if you look at social media, back to the point I opened with, you'd think that we'd be absolutely down in the dumps, but we're not. And I don't know. It's just we're not having to go at anybody here, like for perpetuating the social media kind of discourse. That's fine. It is what it is. But it's just fascinating. Like I don't know. I feel like this is really unusual anyway. As in my memory, Sam, free hits really distort the effective ownership numbers out there and distort the outcomes in such a way as you find the free hit darlings in the inevitable template that forms, and it seemed really strong this time, kind of absolutely decimate you. But it didn't happen this time. I don't know whether this is a time of year thing. I don't know whether it's the injection of extra chips, which has fragmented and atomized the pathways we normally perceive to be quite mainstream. I just don't know. It's been a very, very strange game week where in engaged mini leagues and stuff like that, I've been absolutely pummeled. But in overall, in kind of non kind of engaged groups or mini leagues, I've done fine. Very, very odd.
Yeah, and I was looking at FPL Gameweek, which I know both of us use week to week. There's a sort of a content creators mini league, which like isn't an official league, I don't think, but it's basically just a measurement of like who the people out there making content are and how they're doing week to week. So I check it out most weeks, see how I'm doing compared to like quite a lot of the other people who, you know, put their team out there. And this week, awful score for me, 49 points. I think I'm like in the bottom 20% of that table for this game week. And I think I've lost like 10 places in that imaginary league. So like the engaged community and the people who are like playing really heavily week to week, as all content creators obviously would be, are like have obviously massively profited this week. Free hits been largely successful. I have seen a few that haven't worked out quite as well. And it is important to note that if you're sat there that with a free hit that hasn't been gangbusters, then it is just quite unfortunate. And there are combinations that have occurred that mean that it's not all roses, but largely there have been some big hitting players that non-free hitters just quite simply wouldn't have, like Foden, Gakpo, are two of the main ones, Dango Altara as well. So yeah, if you have free hit this week, you're loving life. And I think a large part of the really engaged community has ended up free hitting. But it is very important to note that although the FPL community as we know it seems to be very like free hit heavy this week, overall it's not even really touching the size. Like I think Rogers was like one of my main like rank threats compared to normal. So like normally be like 5 or 10% effective ownership against me. This week it was like 25%. And outside of that, I was most worried about Haaland, who I own and captained. So it was more the triple captain I was worried about more than anything else. And yeah, obviously Salah not playing also helped me a fair bit too. So yeah, free hit obviously did really well. But if you're out there and you're thinking I didn't free hit and it's all gone terribly, terribly wrong, it's a very small part of the FPL world, and it's quite likely that you've survived it okay.
I just wonder why that happened this week, why that the effect that we've seen has happened. And like I think there's definitely an amplification of kind of the social media side of it, making you think like you're looking through kind of all the team reveals and all sort of thing on Saturday afternoon, and you're thinking, oh my lord, like the whole world is free hitting, and I'm kind of going to be left behind here.
Yeah, it did feel that way.
And then, if, as you said, if you look at the basic kind of effective ownership numbers, they were absolutely nowhere. And I don't know. I just wonder about in terms of the state of FPL at the moment, whether again this is quite a good thing in terms of those extra chips just creating more pathways and actually the mainstream not being particularly mainstreaming. I don't know whether we'll see this again in the second half of the season. I do think that people in the first half, maybe because those chips were a lot more kind of single game week focused, you definitely had the latitude to just go off and do what you wanted with them in some way. We both had kind of moderate success in game week 4 when we both played ours.
Yeah,
and I don't know, I think we kind of had a decent kind of jump back then, even though it wasn't. I didn't start particularly well, that's for sure, but it was still good enough that week to kind of give me a decent outcome and all this sort of thing. So I don't know, maybe it's just kind of because you still have a lot of bunching in the ranks. Maybe you still have a lot of less engaged managers still fairly high up that you're able to overtake, who maybe have used their chips very early. Maybe it's just kind of the natural sort of order starting to reassert itself a little bit. The likes
Yeah.
of, we're saying it, just saying in the chat, the likes of Harry, likes of Prass, likes of Ben Crellin, all slowly but surely positioning themselves where they need to be to get their inevitable very good finishes, and hopefully us amongst them as well. And as you noticed the other week, Sam, it's probably I think that's probably going to be most people's kind of chips done, apart from maybe kind of is it West Ham game in game week 17 that most people were kind of angling for if you free hits of this week and still had triple captain left.
Yeah, so again, looking around, it does seem like most people, and not all, there will be those out there that are exceptions to this rule, but it looks like most people have had at least 3 out of 4 of their chips used by now. And there might be the odd triple captain or free hit left. I haven't seen too many bench boosts or wild cards left anywhere. So if you've got those in hand, then obviously that could be beneficial too. But yeah, mainly the triple captain seems to be the one that might be hanging on for a few people, and there are obviously very good opportunities to use that still. And I think there's the odd free hit as well. But with any week, free hit can be either very high upside or it can actually go the wrong way as well. So yeah, if you're all out of chips like myself, I think you are now too as well, Tom. So yeah, I wouldn't be panicking and thinking that everyone's going to just rake in an extra 30, 40 points on you. And most people are in a relatively similar position now that I've seen. And in the chat, I think it was mentioned that something like 40% of the top million used a chip, which seems like a lot. But actually, if you flip that, that's 6 out of 10 managers in the top million didn't use any chip this week, in a week where if you went on social media or watched any content at all, whether it's YouTube, podcast, like anything, you would be forgiven for thinking every single person in the top million is using a chip. 60% didn't at all. So like there is a lot of variation. There is a lot of variety in the first half of the season because like you say, Tom, that there's more free reign to kind of do what you want because there's no easily definable, very obvious pathway because everyone's just got 11 players a game week. That's pretty much it. Whereas in the second half of the season, you can plan it around doubles and blanks and really maximize and drive that upside. First half of the season, it is much more of a lottery. So yeah, we're all on slightly different strategies. Free hit was a popular one this week, but it was not the majority of people using it. And it was a car crash for anyone who didn't use it.
Absolutely. I feel like, in terms of learnings for these kind of first set of chips, I guess, it feels like wildcards kind of function the same because obviously it doesn't really count in terms of us getting an extra one.
Yeah. We're used to it with first half. We've always had that. Yeah.
I feel like triple captain, we'll see what happens with the week coming up, but the week that you triple captain, Sam, back in was it game week 6, game week 8? I forget which one it was.
6 against Burnley, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Okay.
6,
that seems to be kind of the chip leader, to use the phrase. At the moment, we'll see what happens with West Ham. But I don't feel triple captain's particularly powerful. And that was week high wildcards, and that's had like kind of a longer tail in terms of a positive impact. And then there hasn't really been a bench boost week, if that makes sense at all for anybody.
That's true.
Like a week that a bench boost has really sort of come off. So I don't know, maybe it's obviously looking at a sample of one effectively because it's the first time this has happened. Obviously there have been some people who bench boost game week 1, like James Planet FPL, who bench boosted game week 1 since the beginning of time, it seems like. But I just wonder whether we will see this next year too, if they do keep the 2 chips, which I really hope they do. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts again in a minute, but really hope they do, that the first kind of set, even though there will be a lot of people who do sort of follow some semblance of kind of the main pathway, it does feel like that main pathway isn't as big. I think we're really interesting basically to compare and contrast this first half with the second half when we do get those doubles, which do come along in a more telegraphed way. I mean, how do you feel about the chips being kind of us getting the double helping now you use them all as well?
I mean, so far so good. I'm enjoying this first half of the season probably a little bit more, and I'm enjoying the variety that people are on different strategies. It does feel like everywhere I look, someone's like, there hasn't been a very obvious pathway for people taking a template chip strategy and running with it this season so far. However, I think for me, it's too early to say whether or not I think it's a good change, because the benefit in the past of not having double chips has been the second half of the season. people who are engaged and who do listen to content do start to take advantage because they've saved those chips and they can start using them in aggressive ways in the second half of the season. The problem that might happen this season is everyone gets reset in game week 20 anyway. So are we going to see a situation where even the slightly less engaged players who maybe in previous seasons would have burned through chips in the first half are all ending up on the same or similar strategies to everyone else? And therefore, are we going to end up with a really template second half of the season in terms of chip structure and strategy? There will always be the odd player that's different, but I'm a little bit cautious about being like totally overwhelmingly positive about it at the moment because of what could happen in the second half of the season. So I'm interested to see how it will play out. But so far, I'm enjoying the first half of the season more. So I think it served the purpose that they were hoping for. I just wonder if it has a knock-on effect to how template the second half of the season is going to become.
Yeah, I agree with you. I completely agree with the first half just being made a lot more interesting by them being there. It's normally quite flat, settled by when things kind of start, but when things are kind of all kind of up in the air, like trying to make sense of it. And then after a while, there's a template which forms, and then there's a captaincy which kind of everyone sticks on, which has happened. But the template, as we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, doesn't seem to be as strong at the moment.
Yeah.
Second half, especially if you do start to kind of do well in your kind of hunt for the top 100k, top 50k, so whatever your aim is, finish. I think that is when you might kind of have that observe that flight to safety amongst managers. You'll listen to, for good reason. I'm not denigrating these individuals at all. The likes of Ben and the likes of James, who will kind of lay out a good pathway for using those chips. And we've seen in the past, the dangers that can be present by using those chips in a maverick renegade way and not going your way. And then one week it kind of, when everyone else is on it, all the effects that I've described before of what it can be like to be free hitting, not on free hit when no one else's, can really hit you. So maybe we'll kind of take the first half as being like, it's been a lot more fun, but maybe the second half may revert back to normal. I've actually, because of double game weeks, got very little doubt, sadly, if that's going to be the case. But hey, I'm sure we'll still have fun in some way, shape, or form. Despite the fact that when we get to the free hit number 2, we'll both be sat here going, it's just so obvious, isn't it? Just 10 players pit themselves, and then you've got, do you go for this guy or this guy? And then the whole week swings on that one individual. But I think broadly the TLDR has made the first half more interesting, which, as you said, is probably exactly what they're looking for. Right, okay. Move on then to replacements. So this is replacing form versus fixtures. 2 reasons why. 1, I haven't had much time today because it's Sunday. 2, the data isn't updated anyway on FBref. So we're going to have to be a tiny bit more, what's the word?
Flexible.
I can't be as detailed with the numbers that normally we'd give. It's gonna be like kind of broad ideas about individual players. Like they're in the top X, so the top 10 for XG or something like that, as far as we know. But I don't think this will change that much. So in terms of players, as you mentioned earlier, Senesi and Caicedo were suspended. It was the 5th yellow for Senesi, stupidly at the last minute, kind of thing, which was actually a little bit annoying, but also kind of opens up a few more possibilities for me than I actually had. Caicedo today, awful challenge, shocking challenge, their broker in my opinion, but some people who tend to be Chelsea fans disagreed. Munoz evaded the 5th yellow. Very glad that one didn't come through, and glad I'm not a betting man, or they put a whole load of cash down on that one. I everything in me was convinced that he was going to get a yellow card by hook or by crook. So I mean, I'm not complaining. It's good to have him for Burnley, that's for sure. In terms of injuries, Sarr, Glasner, he kind of rolled his ankle around the 20th minute and came off in the 37th. Glasner afterwards said it wasn't looking good, basically, so we probably won't see him again before AFCON. So that's a definite sell. Other questions out there? Sam gave me a bit of a fright with Bruno because I hadn't seen anything about there being anything wrong with Bruno. And I found an interview with Amorim where he said it was just knocking, it was fine. I think there's some suggestion that he blocked a shot with his thigh, that he was holding his thigh. So some people were saying, oh, it's
I
hamstring
think people
injury.
took it like the wrong way and thought, oh, he's pulled something. And he played on. So I saw a couple of comments just scrolling through the feeds, and I think it was just a paranoia, maybe.
Yeah, and Thiago's the last one, who actually is on this. We'll talk about it for a second, but I don't think so. Keith Andrews said there's nothing. He spoke to him, so it's precautionary. Why he got subbed off? I think he was subbed off on like kind of sofa score and stuff like that. It was like giving an injury as the reason why he was subbed off. It was a 3 p.m. But hopefully that'll be all right. That's one both the pressers for. So we'll touch on it just in case it does kind of become live. But I think you can guess what our answer is going to be on that one. So should we start with broadly? Let's split it up into positions. I know you've also got a Pope problem, which maybe we'll discuss in your team later on. So I don't think that's going to be too universal, but losing a centre or maybe you're looking, if you've got the likes of kind of Anderson, Rodon, all these sorts of characters around your team that maybe you don't have particularly good fixtures this week, and maybe you would be looking for a defensive player to come in. I think for me, there's a few options we will go through, but I think the top of the top list is the top scorer this week, which maybe does paint me as a filthy casual, Sam, but so be it. Malik Chow. Chow, or whatever his name is.
I think it's Chow.
It's Chow at Newcastle. So obviously 2 goals, potentially points chasey, but Newcastle are doing pretty well defensively, around the bottom 5 for SGC. And Sam, some of those deliveries, I don't know if you did put yourself through the Everton game. Yeah. Some of those deliveries, especially in the first half against Everton, maybe think they've been that Howe and Jason. What's his name? Jason Tyndall had been dipping into Arteta's playbook a little bit, like absolutely wicked deliveries, awesome. 4.9 million Chow, so a distressed price. Ruling Spurs and then Burnley next to at home. According to Newcastle, I did double check with a couple of Newcastle fans, and for what it's worth, I think he's absolutely nailed. And more than anything, Sam, he's a Football Manager legend for me. One of those elite centre back description players on my AC Milan game that I speak about a fair bit. Last one had him and Ousmane Diomande, who's currently at Sporting as the starting centre backs for our quintuple winning season. But yeah, I really like it. I think, as we've kind of discussed like a little while ago in terms of the fixture swings, and Newcastle have got like quite a decent run, pretty much all the way to, I don't even know where. I think it's kind of February, when if we're discounting Liverpool as a difficult game, which probably, I don't know, maybe we won't. But that's at the end of January, that game. So Newcastle have got a really good kind of run coming up. I think maybe Chelsea in there actually somewhere, but anyway. So I think that he's probably going to be the one who comes in for me. He's not rising tonight, so on the Sunday. So probably when you listen to this or watch this, he won't have risen. But yeah, I really like that as an opening gambit, and that's probably where I'm thinking of going.
Yeah, I can really relate to that. He's right at the top of my agenda as well. I think he's a good price. He's completely locked in. He's not bad on DEFCON either. He gets the odd one, and he is good from those set pieces. The unfortunate thing is it does look ridiculously knee-jerk. But I genuinely think it's one of those where it's just like, even if he hadn't scored those 2 goals, he'd still be a good pick this week. It's still good fixtures coming. The data will still look pretty decent. Yeah, I do really like it. Newcastle rate him very, very highly at a good price point. And if you've not got the spare money to upgrade Senesi and you really need to sort out your defense this week, I just think it makes a lot of sense. Spurs really struggling to create chances at the moment. Obviously, Kudus got a goal, but outside of that, I think they created very, very little against Everton. And we know they created the square root of diddly against Arsenal. So I think, yeah, it looks like a pretty good opportunity to be picking up. And then Burnley in game week 15 as well. But he's not the only one at that sort of price, is he? No. So we've also got O'Reilly, which got another assist this week. Is he 5.1 now? I think he's gone up. Yeah. So I don't know what. This is one that's causing me a lot of grief. And until the Sarr injury today, I was really trying to weigh up whether I had full confidence on O'Reilly's minutes over the next few game weeks. I still just don't know he'll start Fulham. I think I'm like 90% there, But given the other problems I've got in my 11 and 15, is 90% good enough to be buying now? When again they do look fairly leaky at the back. It's not like they're watertight either. So, and he's nowhere on DEFCON. So
that's literally it.
Yeah, are you the same as me? Have you got that worry?
But DEFCONs which is unfortunately just the nature of where we're in. Is the but I can't quite get round with him. I do think he's in the circle of trust, Sam. I think he's. I
agree
guess
with
if
that.
you own him, you can kind of sleep easy enough that he's nailed in to keep starting. And the underlying data is good, and obviously his attacking potential via his FPL assists and good positions, etc., is all there to see. But DEFCONs, I kind of just feel like he's one for like game week 16 or game week 17 for me.
Yeah, maybe.
I think that now the Leeds game's out of the way, I feel like he kind of goes back in the pool almost, and we have the same problems about attacking fullbacks versus nailed centre backs, especially ones that have a goal threat now in the likes of Chow. And you look at it and just think, well, I think it's probably a bit of a no contest, even though City are kind of demonstrably a better team in terms of attacking. There's always that there. I don't know. O'Reilly gives me kind of Ben White vibes almost from a couple of years ago in terms of how he plays and how he approaches it and kind of the positions he takes up. And
I can see that.
I think that's great. I really do think that's great. It's just that with him, I'm more happy to just leave that for the moment. And effective ownership wise, quite a it's a point not everyone's going to love, but effective ownership wise, I don't look at it and think, oh, you know what, I need to be buying this guy in because I need to kind of get my make sure that I've covered the exposure there. He's only 6% owned. I think it's kind of 40,000 transfers in, but I think there's enough kind of against that for me to kind of be thinking, oh, I'm just kind of fancy going with one of those sexy attacking, one of those sexy centre backs. You get DEFCON and do nothing else. And speaking of which, there are a few others who aren't quite on the aren't on the picture, but there's a few names I'll raise. One is Milenkovic, who has Wolves next. As mentioned last week, Forest were looking tighter, but the performance versus Bryson, giving up 1.5 XG at home, might worry us. No Murillo, probably the catalyst to that. But yeah, Milenkovic, given goal threat, proven goal threat, and kind of one of those players who you think once he's in, he's in. Problem is he's 0.3 more expensive than Chow.
And you're not really getting much more from him, are you?
Exactly. You're getting the same
profile.
Yeah, exactly. So probably one that you'll come back to, but see what goes on with them. But I was pretty set on bringing him in, but I don't think I will now. Which probably it sounds ridiculously like hang on, my head's been turned by Chow scoring a couple of goals. That sounds awful, but I think at this point in the season, is especially given the kind of unique context we find ourselves in, that feels okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I think when you've got a new manager in situ like Dyche at Forest, every game does provide a little bit more information than your average game. So like Eddie Howe at Newcastle, week to week, there'll be good performance, there'll be bad performances, but you're not learning tons about how good of a manager he is or how much better or worse Newcastle are getting as a defense. Whereas week to week with Forest, I feel like we unearth more than we would with any other average team because it is a new manager in a new position. We just and they've changed systems so many times in the last 4 or 5 months. They've gone from like fairly conservative to ultra attacking back to like pretty conservative again. It does make your head spin a bit, and we're all, I think, just trying to work out how defensively robust Forest are going to be because we're still working off of a really limited sample size. If Murillo's out as well for any length of time, it is enough to probably put me off for now, especially because their ownership's going to be non-existent. There is opportunity there as well, of course, but I don't look at that and think, okay, that is where I really start gaining rank on people ahead of me. Like get Nottingham Forest in and, well, defensively at least, and hope to gain a march there. I think Chiao is at under 1% owned, and I think better value for money in a slightly better defense, decent goal threat. He ticks all of the same boxes for slightly cheaper and a better team. So yeah, I think it is that simple, really.
Yeah, I mean, just to chuck in a couple of hours before we get onto inevitable, do you just buy an Arsenal defender again if you don't have two already?
Yeah,
Delict at United seems the nailed on centre back there. Doing the Lacroix centre back kind of thing.
yeah.
Defcon iffy, but
Mm.
decent long term fixture horizon into January. That feels like one that maybe just keep an eye on it. I know United have got that kind of nice trio of fixtures coming up around kind of game week 19ish, something like that. And De Cooper at Brighton is one that I just want to throw in here as well. He's down at 4.3 now, so you're kind of saving money, but also he's got it. And he's an attacking fullback, but you're saving money. He was playing left wing today, with
Mm.
Kadioglu behind him, scored the opener. That is literally it. That's literally it.
Yeah,
But if you really need to, if you've got 2 free transfers and you're looking to find a way to finance Sar up to Bruno, for example, that could be one that maybe you'd look at and think, okay, I'll give that a go. But I think that's probably as far as I'd take that. It's all priced in at 4.3 effectively. But I suppose the
yeah.
Arsenal defense is probably the safest bet beyond Chow. I've thrown a picture of an Hincapi on here. I mean, the Arsenal defense is elite no matter who's actually there or not, as we found out tonight. Obviously drew, but the goal was Maresca doing an Arteta on Maresca, which was quite interesting. There's the Pep acolytes having to go at each other. Gabriel is likely to be out for a while in terms of Hincapi himself, and Hincapi is his direct replacement. Very, very good in Bundesliga. Very versatile as well. I think he's been signed to play. Didn't really put a foot wrong tonight, as far as I'm concerned. And with Chelsea out of the way, I think at the price 5.4, if you kind of have a little bit of wiggle room, but not enough to get up to Timber, who's kind of the apex Arsenal kind of defender signing right now, I'd be happy to give him a look because I do think that he will be given the time to play. Especially with Saliba now out as well. Well, we don't know what the situation is there as a real sort of curveball, really, that he wasn't in the squad due to a knock in training. So, yeah, I mean, if you do want to go back to the Arsenal defence, if you haven't got one at all, and you think, oh, I need to cover that exposure with Brentford coming up, I don't think you could. I think they'll probably be all right for the short term at least.
Yeah, I would like to hear more about Saliba and how quickly he'll be back, because as much as I agree that Hincapié is probably the one who's more secure out of Mosquera and him, but I could easily see a Mosquera and Saliba partnership forming. I know they're like different sides, and I would just be a little bit concerned that could happen when you don't really want it to. Or Calafiori plays centre, Timber can in the past as well. So I'd be a little bit nervous on that if Saliba was back soon. But yeah, I think Arsenal defence always good to get ownership of. I'm still, if Saliba wasn't injured, I would be looking very closely at bringing him in and doubling up again with Timber. But it looks like he might be out for a little while. Who knows? It might literally just be a knock and he's back in midweek, but it's a quick turnaround, so it always feels unlikely. Other players that probably, just because it's in my thinking as well. How are we feeling about Virgil van Dijk this time?
Yeah, so one of those that I think I'd probably still prefer Timber if I've got that much. It's kind of, we talk about 0.1s, 0.2s. Have Liverpool turn the corner. The fixtures are good enough, mate. I've got no problem if you just want to go there and just be like, yeah, okay. I mean, look at the next all the way up to January. Like all of those fixtures are clean sheetable on those. So Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, Tottenham, Wolves, and Leeds again.
Yeah, you couldn't ask for much better, could you?
You can't ask better fixtures. So I mean, I'd be perfectly fine with going there if that was kind of where you wanted to go. It's a real set and forget pick, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not one that fills me with loads of excitement or confidence, but in this period of the season, the 90-minute men do pay dividends, as we saw. Like this week, the unknown unknowns of FPL do start creeping in pretty quickly. Like I did not expect an injury with a suspension and like all of these things coming together all at once, and Pope potentially losing his place. It does make me value or remind me of the value of just having those 90-minute men, even if you don't think that in a normal part of the season they're the best picks. They're a little bit dull. They will still just churn out the points over a elongated period of time. And Van Dijk is another player I just will never need to check the team sheet for. I know he'll play. So as boring as it is, he is in my thinking. The other one I am considering is still Munoz, because he's still only on 4 yellows, and obviously Burnley next. But that will at some point be 5 yellows, I would think. So it's okay, that is going to be an issue at some point. Loves a tackle. But if I sell Senesi for him, then I'm replacing one problem with another, and then it's again only one player to worry about later. Anyway, we'll go into that later. But if you've not got Munoz yet, that would also be playing on my mind a little bit if you've got the money to go up there.
Yeah, I mean, for my own team, just to mention that very quickly, we'll go into it a bit more later. I could kind of field an incredibly dodgy Rodon at home to Chelsea or Anderson at home to Man City, and finally get rid of Tarko for Van Dijk if I wanted to. It's just that I just don't feel like that's quite the right thing to do for me at the moment, but there's definitely the positive sort of downstream impacts of going there. So yeah, one to kind of just table for now, and we'll come back to it in a little bit.
Yeah.
Midfield, Sarr. I mean, take it away, Sam. You're the guy who's got Sarr. I think that prematurely you're going to have to get rid. I think if you can get there, we've got a few options here at the moment, but I think if you can get there, Bruno for me would be the sit and forget buy option. IMHO, and I'm not just saying that because he got 2 assists and got 3 bonus tonight. I'm just saying that because it's a bit like Xhaka. You don't have to worry about the team sheet, like you keep saying, Sam, with Bruno. He's going to do it. Going to get you 11 DEFCONs, unfortunately, but outside of that, he's probably going to do something for you at some point. That's all I can say. But he's just such a good player.
Whether we like it or not, he will just get FPL points week to week. Like, even if it's the most boring possible way of getting the points, he gets the points. Like, this is why I was desperate to get back to him as soon as possible. First week blanked, which is typical. And then second week, 11-pointer looks absolutely fantastic again. So yeah, honestly, if you've got enough money to do Sarr to Bruno and you've got no other fires in your team, I would just get that done, because, I mean, barring some sort of crazy problem where he starts missing games, which just never really happens, he does look like an absolute lock for this period. He's always in the conversation for captaincy as well. As long as you've got 90 minutes out of him, he's going to be up there. Just get it done. Honestly, Bruno for me, if you've not got him already and you've got the money, it does seem sensible.
Yeah, I agree. But if you don't have that much, there are a few individuals who are floating around. So I still kind of come back to Minte. He had a bit of an off day today. We all have bad days at the office. But 6.2, by the time you get around to this, he's looking to rise tonight. I think he's on 6.1 right now as I speak, but probably 6.2. Still need to say really about his underlying numbers. 7 assists now from an XA of 1.99, by the way, according to official FPL, Sam. A couple of FPL assists in there, but it just feels like, if you do have the opportunity to get there, maybe kind of game week 16 probably is the best way in. But 15, sorry, is the best way in. Yeah. But if you want to accelerate that and put it a week early, just kind of have him in there, just leave him there. The fixtures are what the fixtures are going to be. They're kind of fairly mixed, actually, I'd say, looking at them again and thinking about Brighton. But his underlying data is good. I think he's in the top 10, or he was in the top 10, around the top 10, I should say, for XGI. And yeah, like just a real sort of pocket rocket at 6 million or 6.2 or whatever it is, like really good value for money.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, every week I'm considering buying him at the moment, and was in my thoughts yet again for this week. And was always my plan to get him in for Sarr in game week 15. So I might just have to bring that move forward a week potentially. And although it's not the ideal fixture against West Ham, I think he was brought off like 5 minutes early this week. So I would imagine he's fine for the midweek. And then, of course, it's Aston Villa, then West Ham, and then followed by Liverpool away, which I'm not particularly worried about, really. So I just think he's great value for money. I don't think he'll end up being the second or third top point scoring midfielder in the game by the end of the season. But at 6 million, you don't need to be. Like, even a bit like what we said with Semenyo ages ago, he doesn't need to be all that way up there to still be good value for money. And Mint has got a long way to go before we hit the Semenyo kind of price points that make him a question. So yeah, I think he is just a sensible transfer in. 2 home fixtures to come, followed by Liverpool. Yeah, if you've not got the money to move Sar up, Minter will save you a little bit of money as well. Good underlying data, solid pick.
I agree. Around the same price, I think there's probably 2 less sensible picks. Barnes is rising tonight. Caught my eye, and he's on the graphic because of that. A very streaky player, but seems to be one of those who some are getting in at the price tag. Also, Bruno G could be a decent pickup. 3 DEFCONs in the last 4, but I still have a kind of enduring feeling he's not really an FPL pick. Maybe that's just me. Eze as well. The price is probably fine. There's some upside there. But in terms of sensible, I think if you are kind of an Arsenal light, then I think maybe Declan Rice would be a very sensible pickup. Really, if you're looking to get rid of Sarr, you're missing an Arsenal player. Maybe you sold Gabriel a little while ago. You still got Raya, or you still got Timber hanging around. So our fixture run is pretty good over Christmas, and you can probably expect him to play the majority of the minutes.
Yeah, I hadn't really considered Rice up until you mentioned him, but every week he just seems to find a different way of scoring extra points, like a bit like Bruno, whether it's DEFCON or set piece threat, or in fact even open play threat every now and then with Rice as well. He always does seem to have a route. Not as exciting as some other players, and maybe not quite as much open play threat as you'd like for that price. But yeah, I again, he'll just keep churning out the points, and I would not be surprised at all if he ends up in the top 5 or 6 top scoring midfielders by the end of the season. He'll just do it in slightly boring, unconventional ways that, again, some people will just miss out on. But yeah, a good pick. And if you've got Saka, I don't know, would it put you off having double Arsenal midfield at the moment? Probably not. It's probably still fine considering the amount of defenders that have been taken out of consideration for Arsenal right now. It is an interesting one. I hadn't really considered that, but it is now on my horizon thanks to you.
I really like it, honestly. Like, if I had another transfer to peer around with, which I might do, because I said earlier on I'm kind of wavering a tiny bit on Semenyo. Maybe I shouldn't, but I am, or at least kind of in the very short term. It's obviously going to play for me this week, so I've got other things to do. But Chelsea on the weekend and then Man United in 16, they've been a bit rubbish. He points dodged. I don't know if you've seen many of the highlights, Ambi.
I've seen that one, yeah.
Like Evan Nielsen kind of robbing him of an assist and all this sort of thing. But I feel like he could be because I came to him relatively late, so I have got loads of money tied up in him, and there could be I could very well be persuaded on game week 15, so the next probably do on Wednesday night, to get rid of him for a couple of game weeks, and then get him back in game week 17 for Burnley, something like that. Very convoluted. I'm not entirely sure if I will do that, but in your situation with Sarr to get rid of, I would really like Rice. And the reality is that's because the other end of the spectrum, you've already got Elliot Anderson in. I think that he or KDH at Everton, either of them would be. I think Anderson is leagues ahead of KDH in terms of overall recommendability, I suppose, for FPL, just because Anderson's going to be incredibly consistent in terms of turning over 4 points to you every week. Either one of them is probably a good pick, but yeah, Anderson's such a good pickup if you are kind of thinking, well, I want to be doing some upgrading at the back, or I want to kind of just have a 4th/5th midfielder who's going to be reliable for minutes. I think that he's just such an interesting pick up for a lot of people. If you're looking to move Sarr on, and then potentially, as you said, say you really want Van Dijk and you want to get him in for Senesi, well, there's your answer.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're just running through all the players I absolutely love. Elliot Anderson, what an absolute baller! Like, genuinely brilliant central midfielder. He's got everything to his game. Picks up defcons for fun now. And there was that really frustrating start to the season where he was like 1 point or one defcon contribution away from hitting the threshold week to week to week. He's done it a few times this year, but he's never been more than 2 points away from hitting that threshold ever. And we know from last season, he was very consistent as well. He's just going from strength to strength. And when you've got a player that's clearly having his moment in the sun as well, like whether or not it's like with a view to getting a big move very soon, doesn't really matter. He is the it player at Nottingham Forest right now. He's not going to miss any minutes barring an injury. And he's racking up defcon for fun. He's taking corners. He's got a bit of attacking threat as well, more so than a lot of defensive midfielders. He's not really... I'm trying to like define what exact position he plays. He's more of a box to box midfielder than a holding mid, in my personal opinion. Maybe not quite. Not quite Lampard in terms of arriving in the box and getting shots away, but like he is up and around there quite a lot more than you'd imagine a classic holding midfielder would be. So he will get the odd attacking return, probably 1 in every 4 game weeks or so, get something, and he's in the running for penalties. Like, what more can you want? I at 5.3 million, I think he's an incredible 7th or 8th attacker, especially just during this point in the season where, again, you need the minutes. You need people who are just going to churn out those 4 and 5 pointers every single week. You never need to look at the team sheet. He's the perfect first bench player always, but I plan on starting him most weeks during this period, and I'm perfectly happy with that.
Yeah, why not? Why not? All right. And then the final one here, which I don't think we'll spend much time on for now, just we don't really know. Is Thiago maybe injured? The problem is I struggle to see exactly what you do in a forward context. I think that Sarr being injured probably does put paid to my initial fear that Mateta wouldn't play Burnley. I think that they're going to probably need him to play him, and in case he plays one of the 10s, maybe.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I think that's kind of quite fortuitous if you're a Mateta, and obviously not great for Sarr. So what do you do with Thiago? So you've got a away game against Arsenal, as we discussed last week, or mentioned last week at least. I don't think I'm too worried about playing a pen taker who's in this sort of form against Arsenal. I've only got one defender who's a goalkeeper. So again, if I double defence, maybe I would be thinking about it a tiny bit more, but I've got no issues starting him. It's just if he's injured, and if he's injured for, it sounds like it'll be kind of maybe a short while by what was said by Keith Andrews, then I don't know. I just really struggle to kind of see where the upgrade really is, with all the other things that are going on with your team, unless you want to take a hit and all this sort of thing. Watermade back on the menu, but Vissa's back in training. Isaac did a goal again. That's why he's kind of pictured here. But you need to kind of have a lot of money floating around for Isaac to come in. And then you're really in the dregs, aren't you? I mean, you're looking at players around that price, like a Welbeck, who's not done anything today. There's a lot of people's kind of consideration.
Off early as well.
But no, that's probably a good thing for Welbeck, so probably will start.
True.
So maybe he could be one, if you don't know Minte, you could look at. I'm looking at players like Richarlison here, man. I just don't really know.
No way. Yeah.
Exactly. You look at it and think, I'd almost rather just see what the deal is with Thiago, and then take it from there. Or, I'd almost rather upgrade other parts of my team, unless obviously it's a season ender for Thiago, in which case maybe I would kind of start to enter hit City.
Yeah, I mean, also, I don't think it's even a problem, really. I mean, this is speculative at best. We're kind of just shielding in case it is something that's a real injury. I don't think it is. I think he was just brought off as a bit of a precaution. 90th minute, they'd already taken the lead. So again, maybe just get him off, get him rested for the next game. He's so important to what they do. I doubt it's a real problem. If it is, we'll sort. I will probably end up sorting it in game week 15 or 16, and hoping that he's all right in the meantime. I did ideally want to bench him against Arsenal, but like you say, if I think he plays, which I think he will, penalty taking striker against any opponent is never the worst player to be starting if you're in a crisis. So wouldn't be taking hits to sort it. If he does end up being a proper doubt for game week 15 and beyond, and looks like he 14 and 15 and beyond, and it looks like he's properly injured, then I think my favorite, if you've got the money, is Voltemada, who I've been really impressed with recently. So yeah, a little bit gutted I sold him a while ago, but it made sense for my team, and it still does, to be honest, and it's worked out. But yeah, I really like him as a player. Even with Wissa coming back in, Voltemada's been too good to get dropped, in my opinion. So I think he's a good striker to be looking at, but I'd hold on to Thiago, no question.
Yeah. I think in the scenario that he is out, I think I'd leave it this week. I'll probably be looking at keeping the structure as it is at the moment. So that probably means you've got one option, which is FPL favourite Raul Jimenez, who comes into a decent set of fixtures. A Palace in 15, which is probably not as good, but then Burnley, Forest, and then West Ham is the 3 between the 13th of December and after Christmas, which probably would put him near the top of my agenda for a very short term. And then I'd figure out after that. I think I'd probably still have, we'll also have quite a few transfers left over. So maybe I would look at, going similar to you, having Goo and then changing, probably changing King to Anderson or something like that, and having a 3-5-2 for a little bit and beefing up that defense. But yeah, there's another option on the table, but we'll see it when we come to it. Just to reiterate as well, this midweek, we will see a lot of rotation. And I think it's really important to just accept it. It's going to happen. I wouldn't be sat there kind of thinking, I need to take a hit because this player might not play, or I might end up with kind of a less desirable option coming onto the pitch. Like we'll see in a minute, me potentially having an Anderson at home against Man City or a Rodon at home against Chelsea coming on. It's going to happen. And I think that normally, unless there's a player you really want who is like a vital kind of piece of the jigsaw, that maybe you're taking a hit to buy Bruno thinking, yeah, okay, I'm just going to have him in for Sarr, and I'll know that I can just kind of trust him to do a great job for me over the next 6-7 game weeks. That's fine. I can kind of appreciate why you do that, but I wouldn't be kind of making individual transfers, taking hits or a hit when you've got a player who's going to come on and play in the shape of a player like an Anderson or a Rodon, like is in with a shout of DEFCON. I think that's fine. Like I wouldn't be worried too much about that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm kind of broadly with you on that one. I did look at my team this week and think, oh, Panic Station's got a few too many players with pretty tricky fixtures. I wouldn't normally want to play week to week. But midweek is, for me anyway, game week 14, and we'll get it later on in late December as well, when with the quick turnaround. I think the most important thing to remember is just try to make sure you've got 11 players playing. If you've not got 11 playing that you're happy that you're happy will play, that's when moves start needing to really be made. But I probably wouldn't be taking hits just to make sure that you can bench the likes of a Thiago or an Anderson or a Rodon, for instance. I don't think the hits are then worth it. Use your free transfers if you must to downgrade them to your bench if you can, if it suits your team longer term. But yeah, I probably wouldn't be overthinking it.
No, we've got this twice, by the way, around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Cool. That's just the game week 19 is kind of after Christmas, is kind of after the Boxing Day set of fixtures. That's the midweek up until New Year's Day. Then you've got the weekend because of how Christmas has fallen this year, and then we've got, which we don't normally have. We normally that just goes straight into FA Cup third round, but we've got another midweek in game week 21. So yeah, just after Christmas, we're all hungover or we've all started running again. We've got another midweek, so we've got 2 midweeks in a row around Christmas. That's going to be absolute carnage. Of course, I'm going to have to try to figure out exactly what I'm going to do podcast around. Anyway, that's a side point. Let's move on to captaincy for this week. And yeah, I mean, do you keep calm on going Haaland, Sam, or do you go somewhere else?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a whole podcast, I think, because I'm really conflicted on this one. Haaland's been a bit unlucky in the last few game weeks. I mean, Leeds feels like a bit of a one-off. We've already talked about the triple captaincy. I still can't believe it was as quiet for him as it was. And I think if you played that game 100 times, 80% of those games, he get something at least. So I think all of that, and the fact that he obviously didn't get anything against Newcastle when again he got plenty of big chances. He could have got something, and the week before that also missed a penalty, which would have put him on another 13-point haul. I think that was against Liverpool, wasn't it? The stars have kind of aligned for him in the wrong way recently, even though the chances have broadly been there. So I still think he's a pretty good option. And Fulham are not a bad side by any means. Like, they do tend to up their game against the bigger clubs too. So I'm on the fence. I think he'll get good minutes again. They need to keep the momentum after beating Leeds, obviously last minute. They'll wanna start Haaland, I would think. Saka, I'm a little bit worried about an early sub. I think he'll start, but I'm a little bit worried about an early sub. That puts me off of him a bit. Obviously, no one's really going with Salah now after what happened. And
I think I know where this is leading.
And it's Bruno, obviously. And it's good home fixture. He'll get 90 minutes. It's an option. It's a real option.
It is. I'm too much of a chicken because if Haaland does do well, then
yeah.
But
I think owning Bruno is enough. Genuinely.
Yeah, at the moment it is. And I think that because of the nature of most kind of squads out there, I just had a look at kind of the transfers in. Like, Bruno is kind of around, it's pretty low down because he's still quite pricey for a lot of people to be looking at. And unless you're selling a Saka or something, I do think that most people won't have that kind of disposable income to get to Bruno. So
yeah,
I just look at it and really boring, but I just think, well, I've had quite a good run. I don't want to jeopardize that by.
It's a big swing, isn't it?
Put myself at a disadvantage from the start.
Yeah, it's one of those game state things where, okay, there is a big advantage to be taken if you take that swing and it pays off, because he will be relatively low owned. And if Haaland doesn't get anything against Fulham, then, well, your quid's in. But at the same time, you can have a bit of both worlds. You can have the best of both, where, okay, you have Captain Haaland, who, again, against Fulham, it's a decent enough fixture. Bruno, you're going to get a pretty sizable advantage from. I think he was like 11% effective ownership at my rank today. So anything from him is still going to be hugely beneficial. Not many people are going to captain him. I would imagine he's going to be 20, 30% effective ownership at worst. So you're going to get a pretty sizable benefit from him, even if you don't captain him, and he does end up hauling. But that being said, if you've got enough strength and conviction that he is going to do better than Haaland, it makes sense to back that, because that could be really quite transformative for your season if you do make that kind of call and it pays off, as we've seen already this season once or twice.
Yeah.
So yeah, Bruno, he in the chat as well, he definitely plays. He definitely gets, well, he almost certainly gets 90. And yeah, on penalties, on set pieces, DEFCON. Good fixture.
Never helps anyone. Fulham are also at home, like the top 5 for XUC. Whereas, I mean, if that kind of helps you a little bit, or West Ham are not as good if you look at the away data. So potentially,
maybe.
I think I'm just like, it feels like we go back to the chat about taking the moonshot, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like I've done that so many times, and yeah, maybe that's my own sort of level of stupidity and all this sort of thing, and I didn't quite choose the right moonshots when it comes to outcome. But I feel like I've been here before so many times, and I've kind of chosen that option, and it's just been an absolute disaster. Bruno himself as well, you know what it's like, again, like with what he can be like. I just foresee, if I captained Bruno rather than Haaland gets like a goal and an assist or something like that, and then you're sat there watching Bruno on Thursday night, and I can imagine that could be one of the most
torture
in the world, because he is always so close to the points. Like, a great couple of assists against Palace, right? But imagine the amount of things, Xerxes hitting one into the stanchion, one when Bruno's played him through for an open goal, Bruno missing from 3 yards out, all these sorts of things manifesting themselves. I don't know. It's one of the things you can see in your mind's eye. But if you're not watching the game, perfect. And also, if you've got the cojones to go with it, then I'm not going to say no to it. Honestly, I just can't do it. I don't think I'm going to do it myself, Sam. But
Would you have Bruno ahead of Saka out of interest?
Yes, I think I'm pretty sure in the graphic in a minute, he's not my vice captain, but he is in real life. I think I can take that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Shall we go over to 1 week punts?
Yeah, let's do it quickly.
Let's do it really quick. Mine returned, but didn't really get much else. O'Reilly, 4 points for me. You honestly, unbelievable form in this. I cannot believe how many points you're getting from this. So we might just need to actually start buying your 1 week punts week to week.
Yep, Dango did the job for me. Was always saying he's a big chance magnet. They got the assist for the penalty and scored. And Charlie went off very early, didn't he? It's a bit of a surprise for a lot of people. But yeah, 12 points for me. So it's 85-41 is where it stands at the moment. I've
44,
gone with you.
I thought it was on 44.
No, it's 40. No, I think you are 44. I think I probably forgot to update that one.
Anyway, not that it makes any difference.
Sorry. I've gone. This was always the SAR week for me. And it's now not going to be that. So I was thinking, well, I could go in Nketiah, but I'll go for Jeremy instead, just because he had a more fun profile picture on FPL. And plus, I think he's actually one of those players who we speak. I think Jeremy, from watching him, and when I've watched Palace this year, is one of those players that maybe like Minte and like Semenyo will be talking about this time next year when he'll be in our teams because he will have kind of made good on the end product. I feel like he's still adjusting. As we said at the start of the season, Spain international, did well at Villarreal, etc., and so on and so on. And a team like Burnley, I don't know. I feel like he could be that could be like a nice little punt this week.
I like it.
I would never ever. Earlier on, we were talking about midfielder pickups. I would never ever say to buy Jeremy, but maybe I should have because you've got free transfers coming in game week 16. Who knows? I quite like that in this format.
Yeah, for sure. If I was on a free hit or something, he'd be up there. Like really good value for money at a cheap price point. Yeah, I think he's a very high quality player as well. So I really like it. I've gone similar with the Crystal Palace vibe. I am starting to use the slightly bigger, more popular players. So I'm going with Munoz this week. Again, because he avoided that 5th yellow against United, I think I wanted to take that opportunity. Good chance of a clean sheet. Obviously, good chance of attack and returns. So fingers crossed I can get an actual haul out of this. Although I don't currently own him, so it will be bittersweet because his ownership's pretty heavy. So if he does haul, again, this is kind of happiness hedging, where at least if he's not in my team, I get some points back on this. But yeah, Munoz for me.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's go to our teams then to end it up.
You're first.
I'm first. I think it'll be what it will be, honestly. So I've got to make a defensive transfer. I've got Raya in goal, Tarkovsky, who's the great survivor, the cockroach I'm never going to be able to squelch because I'm going to have other issues to deal with. Nice assist, actually, for KDH this weekend. Obviously avoided DEFCONs because he's allergic to them by the sounds of it, even though his numbers of DEFCONs are very high. And Munoz, I've got a third defender to deal with. I'll come back to that in a minute. Minte, Bruno, Semenyo, Saka, Thiago, Haaland and Mateta. Yeah, Thiago's away against Arsenal. Could be injured. That'll make things even worse because my bench is disgusting. It's Rodon at home to Chelsea. He's first bench at the moment on the off chance that Chelsea do rotate heavily for that game. And then Anderson versus Man City at home. And then King versus Man City at home. It's not great. And I think there's not zero chance that I will see both of Rodon and Anderson come off the bench. It's not zero chance. I'm fairly sure I'll get my bench one. Maybe. Who knows? Hopefully not. But yeah, Sinesai on the field means I've got to make a defensive transfer. And I think that it's probably fairly obvious that the answer is probably Chow now. I was looking at some jiggery pokery surrounding Milenkovic and some jiggery pokery surrounding Neco Williams, who you mentioned earlier on. But I've got the money to go up to Hincapi, or I've got the money to do Tarkovsky to Van Dijk. But I feel like that doesn't really help me this week. And given the free transfer situation, given everything else that's going on, I think I'm just going to buy Chow. Keep calm, buy Chow, get on with it. So I think that's probably going to be me this week. And the captaincy is on Haaland, and the vice is on Bruno in real life. On the graphic, I think it's on Saka, but I think I'm very happy with that.
Yeah. I like it. You've got a strong team. You were mentioning your bench being a problem. Mine's a bigger problem, I would say, because I don't have King. I've got GU as well. I've even placed Anderson in my starting 11, just more of a mental thing, more than anything else. So starting 11 for me as it stands. Pope at home to Spurs. I don't expect him to play, but I'll have him starting just in case. Dubravka to come off my bench at home to Palace. I spoke about it to you privately in the DMs last couple of days. Pope being out is annoying. It did make me consider shifting my transfer plans, but I can survive with Dubravka for the next week or two and then sort it when we get the 5 free transfers, I think. And who knows, maybe I get lucky with Pope coming back in, and I would like him for that Burnley game in game week 15. So I'm probably just going to hold on to him and start and Dubravka can come off the bench if needed. Not worth a transfer in my thinking. In my midfield, Sarr will be a problem, I would imagine. And in my backline, Senesi is out, obviously. So currently starting Lacroix, Timber, who I'm a little bit concerned will miss game week 14. But actually, given the other issues with Arsenal, I think it's quite important that they keep players like Timber. And it's also important to note that last year during the Christmas period, he didn't miss any games until he picked up the 5 yellows, and that's the game he missed. So yeah, Timber for me is probably okay. I'm currently starting Anderson, but I've got a free transfer to use. In my midfield, Bruno, currently vice, but we've discussed obviously could be upgraded to captain. Could go 50-50 on that, pretty even. Saka, Semenyo, and Anderson. Feeling fairly good that all of those start. And then up top, Haaland, currently with the armband, but could end up on Bruno. And Thiago, who I don't think is an issue. I don't think I need to sort that. If I need to start him, fine. But I will need to use a transfer. So Senesi and Sarr are the two obvious ones. I did initially want to upgrade Rodon because I've got 3 million spare. It could be literally any defender. But I think I'm going to need the depth of as many playing players as possible this week because, there will be something I'm not expecting. So although I don't expect to play Rodon or need to lean on him, I think having that extra playing defender this week might pay dividends. So probably Senesi or Sarr out. If I remove Senesi, I think it might be Van Dijk, honestly, or Thiaw. One of those two, like the two most likely right now at time of recording. Or I could leave it, make peace with starting Anderson or Rodon, probably at Anderson. But I like the thinking that you applied with Rodon, maybe going up against a rotated Chelsea. But Anderson's just so good on DEFCON. I'll get 2 or 3 points out of him, even if they concede 4. He'll probably end up on 2 points. So it's not a bad shout. So with that in mind, maybe Sarr can be sold. And because I've got 3 million, I am thinking maybe Foden, maybe Mbermo for a couple of weeks before he goes to AFCON, and then I can get rid of him. I would have initially been getting rid of Sarr, so it's just one AFCON player for another. And those next 2 fixtures, I'm tempted to attack the upside, put it that way, with Foden or Mbermo, or just move forward them into move and go for him now. So yeah, a few different routes that I'm considering. Maybe it makes sense to just upgrade Senesi and sort out Sarr next week. I don't know.
Yeah. My immediate thought on this is just make your peace with playing one of Anderson or Rodon, and just
I can do that.
Get Sarr and get Sarr upgraded. For which one, Bumo or Foden? Again, incredibly points chasey, Sam. But I wouldn't say no if you did kind of think, yeah, right, I'm just gonna go Foden for a little while. Like to play the minutes. Really good fixture run. I don't really see much wrong with that.
Not on Burmo for a couple. West Ham followed by Wolves.
Yeah, actually, yeah, absolutely. It's just because I know that you like to not have a transfer booked in. But it depends
Yeah.
what your 16 looks like in terms of transfers out.
Nothing at the moment. It's
Yeah,
probably Pope. Like
actually, if you got bugger all, yeah, we've got Pope still with. Okay, and then I guess maybe kind of given the way squads are set up, you can kind of roll back to 5 pretty quickly.
mm,
Yeah, if you got a good feeling about Mbumo, I'd do it. I don't really have a problem with that at all.
yeah.
One of the two is absolutely fine with me. I definitely 100%. Like, I wish I was in your situation where I had a midfielder to get rid of, and I could do an upside transfer. Like, it's much
Yeah.
more exciting than me just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna do Senesi to Sar and just get rid of it. Like, when Senesi's back, you'll be fine, because at the end of the day, you've got a fairly cheapish player that you've bought in coming up in game week 17. It's Burnley, and he's a player that fits into the rotation really well, because he will almost definitely get DEFCON every time he plays. So keeping hold of him is probably going to be a good thing for you. But SARS definitely has to go. So why not get rid of him now? Why not upgrade it? Minte, yeah, the fixtures are all right, but not amazing. It just depends on if you buy a Bumo or if you buy a who's the other guy?
Odin.
If you buy a Foden, that closes the door on Senesi to Van Dijk, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So it'd have to be a Chow.
Yeah, well, that might be no bad thing.
Yeah. I suppose if I didn't sell Senesi this week, I'm probably not selling him next week. It would be like the defender that leaves is probably Rodon if I make that move next week, because Senesi's back and he's got Burnley round the corner. And like you say, he's decent on DEFCON. He's been a horrendous wildcard pick for me, but I'm not gonna get too upset by that, because the underlying data DEFCON wise still, like, he's got a bit of attacking threat as well. If he wasn't suspended this week, I probably wouldn't be looking at selling him. So with that in mind, if I can hold on to him for another week, then it's probably a transfer I can save. Whereas Sar was going to get sold next week anyway. So the big question for me is, can I survive this week with just one playable bench player? Like, Giu's not getting minutes, Senesi suspended.
You might, if
Maybe
if you
wasn't even
hopium
on the
it
bench today.
If you hopium it and think that, but maybe he's being saved for the Leeds. Oh,
yeah, maybe
that's very hopium pipe. But yeah, I mean,
I just feel like I might need a bit more depth, and
is that worth -4 though? That's the question.
No, I don't. Probably not. Probably
because,
not.
like, if you look at your prior statement that you think that Anderson, which I kind of agree with, actually, maybe I should put Anderson first bench, but that he's just kind of net out around 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Then
it needs to be a clean sheet, and it needs to be
you're looking at buying Van Dijk and Minte. I think we'll probably find buys in, but is that going to give you a profit off -4? I mean, the odds are probably not. I think you just manage. I think you just manage a model through this, which probably.
And it is worth noting, like, well, obviously we've talked about rotation, but it is important that, like, you're going to start the players in my 11 right now. I'm going to start, even if they do get rotated. That could happen, but they'll probably get minutes. Like, Saka will probably get at least some minutes, even if he does get rotated. Timber probably quite similar. Semenyo, like, how many of these players am I actually worried about getting rotated? That's the question. And if I think one or more of them will, then I probably need a bit more bench depth. But I think the chances are relatively low that more than one of them gets 0 minutes.
I think so.
I think.
Let's introduce Rice to the equation very quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose that might give you a few more options, and it would still kind of secure you. I mean, you've ended up in a bit. You'll end up in kind of like the ultimate sort of FPL meta player who's got Anderson and Rice in his team, just drip free points.
And Bruno.
And Bruno, yeah, you're literally just be drip feeding like a hamster.
Yeah,
but I don't mind it at all as an alternative to the two that you've been mentioning. And does does that preclude you from getting Van Dijk at some point?
Rob, no, I mean, I've got the money. If I went with Rice for Saar, I could get Van Dijk. Yeah,
that's very close, isn't it? So it keeps the door open. Whereas if you've got a Boomo or something, and that also means that you save almost like it saves you a transfer later on. You don't have to do more sort of jiggery pokery. But if you've got no real problems for round 16 by the looks of it, then I think you're probably okay. I think I'm inclined to agree with in the chat. Nobby just said, phone's always minus risk. You're going to know that, but at the same time, there's an upside with him. I'd be inclined to just take him and just ride that train for a little while. With Boomo, the train stops very quickly. But with Foden, it could well be that he said in his post-minutes interview, didn't he, that he wants to prove he could score goals again. I just wouldn't say no to that. And plus, you live in constant fear of a Fodening, don't you?
I do. I love that man. He's so good.
Exactly. I love him as well.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I probably, I just love Saka more. But if I had the option, I'd be really looking at it. So, do I have the option? Hang on. Sorry.
Should we go back to your team quickly? There you go.
I do have the option. I can use Semenyo to Foden. I'm not going to do it because my defense is a pile of crap. I need to get that sorted.
Better than mine. So maybe I should just do defense. I don't know.
No, don't do defense. Don't do. I feel like the upside.
You don't think defense? Okay.
No, the upside of defense is so low. Like at the end of the day, you're talking.
Yeah,
we're talking about three. You're talking about 3 or 4 points in for a 0-pointer, whereas for midfielders, and plus centre side's going to come back, whereas Saar probably won't until next year. I mean, this is no brainer for me.
Yeah, I mean, maybe with that logic in mind, I just bump up the Minter move because I was going to make it next week anyway, and then I've still got the money to then next week upgrade Rodon to Van Dijk if I wanted to. It's basically just flip the 2 moves.
Yeah.
I need to work out whether or not the money that I would spend on Mbeumo or Foden is worth spending on them.
Can you do Rice for Saar and then do Rodon to Van Dijk? That would be.
Oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. Yeah,
that's the real. That's the real quiz for me. I like that.
You think that? Okay, interesting.
I do really like that because not for me, but for you, because I think that you really like Van Dijk as a pick, whereas I'm still a bit iffy on it.
Yeah,
even though I know all the positives.
I do like Chiao. I could get on board with him over Van Dijk if I needed to. Do I have the money to do Mbeumo or Foden this week, then Chiao from Rodon next week? I'll have to check that. I don't think I do. But if I do, then that might be interesting.
Yeah, I low-key want that's what I was hoping Tarkovsky would be or something like that. One of these players, and you got Lacroix, who's basically Van Dijk for Palace. One of these players who's going to do the same job because there's no upsides. It's just that the defense is fairly solid.
Yeah.
So you're going to
tell that to his assist last week, Tom.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean.
Assisting Munoz as well.
Legend.
All right. Well, let's see. You haven't got very long to think about it, but I wouldn't turn into a bit of rice baby in your team.
Yeah, I like it.
Just do. I think just do the midfield first. That is the way I'd go. And if there's a real, because you've got one less player than me on your bench, if there's a real big issue, I'm not gonna with Thiago. I think that your first hit of the season being to remove two players who aren't going to play would be entirely justified. So yeah, I think that's kind of where we go with that one.
Yeah, I'm going to do as much as I can to resist taking hits in situations like this. I think that will be a last resort. If we hear Thiago's out as well and I need a hit to even have a playing 11, I think as long as I've got players that I think will play, I will probably resist a hit, even if it's Anderson playing or Rodon playing, I think. Anyway, I've not got long to think about it, so I'll sleep on it and come back with an answer in the next 24 hours probably. But yeah, thank you for throwing Rice into the mix there. I do need to think about that one because I quite like that move. Anyway, I think we're wrapping up, aren't we, Tom? So thank you all so much for listening, especially given the tight turnaround. We do massively appreciate it. We have been Who Got the Assist. You can find us on Blue Sky at Who Got the Assist, all written out one word. FPL Pricey for me on there. X, it's WGTA_FPL and FPL Pricey for me on there. And on YouTube, who got the assist, all written out. And again, I'm over there at FPL Pricey. If you did enjoy today's pod, I'd really appreciate it. And we both really appreciate it. If you could follow us on those socials, give the pod a 5-star rating wherever you're listening. And of course, leaving a like, hitting subscribe on YouTube does really help us out as well.
Yep, thanks so much. And thank you, Sam. Just to mention, FPL meets next Saturday at first near Waterloo on from 12 p.m. Midday. 12 p.m. Yeah, that's right. Not from midnight. I'm sure some people may still be there at midnight. Probably not me though. With one child. But Arsenal Villa is the early kickoff. Lots of 3 p.m.s because of the nature of what's going on, and these Liverpool in the evening, which may make me think about Azuli Bears just raised him in the chat, and I didn't have time to bring him up with you. But Gakpo, I think there may be some latitude for me to be looking at him this week because I don't like going to live things about a player in the evening. And thanks for listening. We hope to you think about Gameweek. Gameweek 14, isn't it? Good luck this midweek game week. Remember the deadline's on Tuesday night. We'll be back on Wednesday due to rapid turnarounds, which unfortunately means that we'll miss Sam's Bruno captaincy on Thursday night. That can't be helped. So yeah, it won't be long, and we'll see you next Wednesday.
Oh, it's a goal. Who got the assist?